what you sound like.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
It's not overkill, is it?
No.
Right, okay. And you're in airplane mode as well, aren't you? Not. I didn't expect it would be able to see anything.
So, religion.
Okay, so I was going to introduce this as you're going to give some reasons for
No, not really. It's more so
pens.
how an atheist can, how to describe it. Put it this way, right? So,
Actually, I should record us talking about it.
well, no, the idea was this. The idea that the reason why I thought of this, right, was religion.
But how you didn't need God for your worldview is one point.
Yeah, so that's So I can discuss that at the start. But how more so religion kind of points at science and says, you know, like say the seal dating, and goes, well, look, your methods aren't true. You can't, like, no, the seal date it back.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Okay.
Mine is now kind of the other way around. So it's like science referring to biblical things, going, well, how, if this is this, then why is this?
Right.
More so how the internet can help you see two complete sides of the story.
Yeah.
So you've done your.
So how do I introduce it? Kevin's going to give a few points on
an atheist, evolutionist side, questioning religion, questioning creationism.
Yeah. Okay. So you're questioning my views then.
Yeah, kind of that sense. Yeah, not poking, but just showing you how this can be searched. Like,
Okay. Yeah. Right. Okay. Welcome to episode 12. I'm here with Kevin Casey again, and we're here to discuss. Well, basically, on this podcast, I've talked a lot about my own view of Christianity, and I suppose it encompasses part of what I was trying to do with the Train Thought and Truth. The truth is taken from the New Testament of Christ's line, I am the way, the truth and the life. And that basically, it sums up Christianity. But you're here to give... See, we delved into this a small bit, I suppose, with your other podcast, and I suppose you were the 5th episode, so I would have had plenty of... well, I obviously do a lot of reading on this, so I would have had plenty of ideas to back up where I was coming from and had stuff prepared or whatever. So this is more just to give you be taking an atheist viewpoint.
Correct. Yeah.
On the same things we're looking at, basically.
Yeah. So like, it's not pointing at saying one view is right, one view is wrong, but it's showing how, firstly, how powerful the internet is. Secondly, how you can refine a search and find out certain information. And thirdly, then it kind of gives an atheist view of standing outside, listening to religion sides of creationism, and it kind of, you know, points at questions and demands answers from that side. Not that I'm demanding answers from you. I'm just showing you how exactly it can come across and how, I don't know, how many different views are out there. Yeah.
Well, before we delve into it, right? Let's discuss how, in your opinion, how two people from the same family, the same upbringing, same environment, can have opposing views in that way.
Yeah.
Well, firstly, where do you think that can originate from?
Like, I know you've talked about it before. Like, everyone does their christening. You're obviously not aware of that. You do your communion. You're somewhat aware, and you want to keep your family around you, so you're told, you know, behave in the church. God is watching you. You know, and in between communion and confirmation, you start kind of maturing a bit, and you start going, you know, there's a God I need not sin, I need to go say my prayers. Then you have your confirmation. I think that's where everyone drops off.
This is where you're becoming the teenager almost, probably. But also starting secondary school, so your education, I suppose, and well, really, a big thing. Sorry, you continue there.
Yeah, no. All I was saying was, see, your confirmation. The next thing you have then is a wedding, funeral, or some sort of Christmas mass. Apart from that, then you're not. Schools aren't bringing you up for anything. you have your graduation, but it's not really a holy. It's done in the church, but it may not be a holy thing. So, and your religion then in secondary school is not, like we had a live vote, which was singing songs of God and all. Religion then in secondary school is looking at other religions. So it's not really pinning you down to Christianity. It's just saying it's like history,
Yeah.
It doesn't pin you down to your country, but there is a little bit. But see, I think at that age, then you're kind of off on your own, and as well you spoke with Paddy and Tom about it, you're on your own. It's your freedom. You find your own way, and if you don't make connections in your life, like I wouldn't have said that something happened in my life, and the only reason it happened was God was definitely looking over me. It's coincidence or science or it's odds, matter of odds. Like I think, if I was playing football and I kicked a point in the last minute of the game, won the game, that might have happened 20 times previous and I might have kicked it wide. Maybe it was just the odds of that one. And that's how I viewed it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, obviously, we both personal connections with Nana, but it took different ways. Like I respect her and I respect her views and I'd never dash it. I just didn't get the same connection with God, or didn't find the same connection with religion as you might have found.
Yeah, but you probably wouldn't notice that I went through long years of not being religious in any way.
Yeah, you always would have blessed yourself passing the graveyard though.
Yeah, maybe so, yeah.
Which was, you still had something, maybe
as well, I think, as well, when you grow up in Catholic Ireland as well, that used to happen in the school bus, everyone did it, and they were told to mark respect by their elders to do, and maybe it was habit, but maybe regardless of God, it was a mark of respect to those who probably passed or that, even though it was making a symbol of the cross at the time. I did veer from it though, 25, 26, 27 even, well, very, very shortly after I was 27 changed, but I would have been very much on the fence, very much in the evolutionary standpoint.
Were you questioning it, or were you just sitting on the fence and waiting for something to happen?
I was fairly solid that evolution was true and that most of the Bible was myth, and it was, someone had put it in place to control people. I remember hearing years ago that you take 1 O out of good and you get God, and you take the D out of the devil and you get evil. And that this was a way of controlling people, and I got sucked. A lot of documentaries you used to see like ancient aliens on, and all this kind of thing. Made you think that.
Dog-headed men.
Yeah, now it turns out that though that nobody, them particular ancient aliens, that was a big hit. Apparently, it was all. Some astrophysicists have spoken about it, but you never quoted anyone ever knows.
No.
But we just wanted to see. Yeah, so you're saying that basically you can grow up in the same environment. See, it's very Catholicized environment.
Yeah.
Last generation more so. The generation before that more so. Our next generation less so, and that's the way it's going.
But if you find, I don't know whether you found but generally, when I was growing up in school, the primary school teachers were a lot older than the secondary school teachers. So you'd have people who were maybe in their 50s teaching kids, and they were, so you can imagine when we grew up it was very Catholic Ireland. Imagine back then it was even more so. So they carried their faith and they pushed it into the primary school.
Yeah.
But when you got to secondary school, you had people maybe, when I was there, maybe like we had teachers that were probably your age, who were 5 years older than me, who just left school, studied, and became teachers.
Yeah.
Man didn't have the same view.
It's strange as well. That's true, and I never really thought about that because primary school teachers are generally older. But I think personally, it was like being forced to do Irish, the whole religion thing. Going there, mumbling, bored. The same things uttered over and over again. Gets monotonous. Everyone's chanting. You can see how it's cultish, and you can. A lot of. I think, right, so there's a stage one for us, you grow up in it. Stage two is after communion, you're that age, you go into school, and that's the next. I'm not saying it's staged for everybody. I'm just saying that's when people start to disperse because they have their own mind. They're not adults, but they're starting to look at the world and know what people can do in history, and they understand a lot more about how people react to stuff. And then I've often said lately in these podcasts that there's a third review of it that I came to. I didn't actually come to it willing to come to it. In that sense, the way I say that is that I had an experience, right?
Yeah.
And I have to be honest about it, because the way I'm going to put it, because it sounds a bit cuckoo, and I often listen to people saying it, this, that, and the other, but it was as if a presence entered the room. Very, very odd, experience, but just changed everything.
Yeah.
And I went home, and I remember sitting on the couch, and people were saying, Paddy showed me the Kent Hovind guy, and even though I had that experience, I was still completely, well, evolution's true, and this is, and their mythology, you know.
Yeah.
It took me from going from the fence to saying, let's take another look at this. And then I read books on theology and a lot of mathematicians and different things like that. And from that, regardless of the school thing, I started to jot down loads of stuff and realised there was so much science behind it in certain ways. But I knew you needed that experience. The science wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And that was the problem. And you could never, but it's also, I think, the right idea, because you can never teach someone to be a Christian from an atheist.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole idea. You have to, you know, say God wants you to come to it by yourself. And it's set for everyone individually. It's there. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Is that, you know, I couldn't sit down and say, the reason why you're atheist and I'm Christian, right? Look, listen to all this, and then expect you to go away any more different than you are.
Yeah.
You won't. You'll go out and you'll say, yeah, there was some interesting stuff, but at the end of the day, you know. But then if you went home tonight and your front door opened, and you know, then you'd be like, hold on, should I be looking at this again?
Yeah.
And I think that's when I realised there was a bit of science behind it. Now, it took me a long time. I remember flicking off Kent Hovind and said, that's bollocks. And what are we doing here? And then Noah's Ark thing is saying, and then, but at the same time, a lot of Christians say, a lot of Catholics, you know, our grasp as Catholics is the Bible is metaphorical, and these stories are lessons. And I know Jordan Peterson does a big biblical lecture of how he pulls psychological depth out of the stories and says what they mean or whatever. But there is, I find, some truth in it too, with stories that sound unbelievable, you know. So that's the question. What is Christian anti-scientific?
Yeah.
And that's where you have to come from with it, you know. So what's your opinion on that?
Like, it depends. Like, there's a lot of scientists, archaeologists, paleontologists who are very much Christian. And one of the things that I was going to talk about was with Ron Wyatt's discoveries. But a lot of them were researchers who went out to prove, to view where Ron Wyatt carried out his bits and pieces, and said, unfortunately, as much as we would love it, these are not findings. There's not enough evidence. So I'm not saying that science and religion are on two different spectrums. They're not. You have science that you have molecular behaviour, aging to some degree, chemicals. They can be carried out. They're not based. What you do come across then is your evolution, which science never claims it knows all. But what it does is it carries out tests on the observable science and predicts. So like it predicts how two electrons. We've never seen an electron. We can't see an electron. Yeah. But we can predict how electrons are going to behave, and by carrying out tests and predicting it, we can make things like medicines and household cleaning agents. So they can carry out falsifiable tests, and through their predictions and through their methods and theories, they can then put it into practice and into something that we can physically see. Yeah. So we know electrons exist, but we don't see them, but we know how they're going to behave with each other. Yeah. So that kind of thing. So is it interesting though as well, just on the point of electrons, and you know, we believe in things that we can't see but they work. It's like, you know, the same thing people say your potential, you know, you believe that obviously there is something and you know, we grasp for it. But on the God thing, you know,
I get what you're saying. The knowledge, science means knowledge, or actually, I think in Latin
Knowing.
means, it's like a drive for knowing, or there's some longer, but basically that's what it means. And so you're right. It sets up experiments and tests, and it comes together. So the problem, I remember hearing this a while ago. Like, I listened to William Lane Craig's big theologian, David Wood, used to say, say on the origins of life, this is where the big, I didn't realise, we're never told this, that there's a big gap there, and maybe we should be, because if you were told, all you're told is that evolution is true in schools, and then you get religion class, and it's a little bit different. But if you're at science class, I remember being taught, this life form appeared in something billion years ago, and everything you read in the books is, But
very little about evolution though in school science.
Yeah, but it is a thought as if that's how everyone goes about it.
I would say it's down to, like, I went on science first to third year. I don't remember evolution being mentioned at all. Now, saying that, in first to third year in religion, they didn't mention God created the earth. But God created the earth was primary school.
Yeah.
So when you get to secondary school, I didn't study anything about evolution. I don't remember anything, and I didn't do biology or anything like that for leaving cert, so I can't speak on that. But I would say, depending on your teacher, it might give you a different. View.
That's true.
Yeah.
It depends on their views, But as well, the point I was making there was, so basically, if it's if you're told that there is a competing, and because if you're told that, I don't remember being told that, but that's very big, because they say the Big Bang as if that's it, but when you look into it, it's not. There's a big, huge gap, which is the origins of matter, space, and time, which have to come into existence at the same time.
Yeah.
And because they say if you have matter and no space, where do you put it? Or matter, no time, when do you put it? And so the idea is when they three them come into, so they look at natural ways to explain that, and they can't.
Yeah.
So there is a possibility that if you can't explain it by a natural way, there is a possibility, even in science, that it could be supernatural.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, there's no evidence of the Big Bang. They don't have clinical evidence of the Big Bang. They can predict the Big Bang, and it was down to was it zero energy universe, zero matter universe?
Yes.
Because in space we've so many, say, particles and holes opening and closing due to pressure that's how they predict it happened. At the same time as that, no, there isn't. There is the possibility of a supernatural force.
Yeah.
Again, can't be proven.
Yeah.
So there is two very competing sides. Yeah.
But how science also comes to conclusions as well is by evidence and compiling evidence. And I think as though there might be a prejudice in science against creationism. I'm not saying the age of the earth or anything like that. I'm saying the idea of creationism. So if you have something that has come out of nothing, that's seems fine-tuned, and works in sync, and it's governed by all these laws that we don't know. Like, they actually can't explain gravity. Even the astronauts don't know what it is. They can't replicate it. But it's the most basic of laws. Like, that's the first thing you know when you get up in the morning, kind of thing. Inertia, centrifugal force. All these laws are pre-made there. The rotation of the earth is in perfect sync. We're 1 astronomical mile from the sun. Perfect eclipses come, and it's very fine tuned. Now it is.
Now that's not to say though, if the Earth was that bit closer to the sun, me and you mightn't exist, but a different form of a human being might exist that survives in that kind of atmosphere. Yeah, that's not to say that. Yeah,
but we can't find it, kind of thing. I remember there's an analogy of this: if you go to a rocky beach, and there's a load of rocks on it, but then you see one rock that has writing on it. I'm in a shed up the road, tied up, help me. Do you ignore it, or do you say there's evidence that someone with intelligence has made their mark on this? Now, it can be random. People say you can throw things up, but the problem is when they say about nothing exploded, or even voids and material particles are matter. They don't, because it's also thrown in a spawny. God can't be eternal. Because nothing can be eternal. then matter can't be eternal. In that the same,
Mhm.
you know, it's a lock of heads there. You know,
Yeah,
it's very
yeah.
difficult to know which way to go.
It is.
No, I'm not saying these arguments convince me.
No, just what is out there.
Yeah, and you're saying,
yeah.
you know,
Exactly what I'm finding is
it could come to, you know, this way.
Yeah.
And I want to read out a few of some stuff I came across. The deductive reasons for faith in God. These are right.
Okay.
So one is the cosmological argument, and these are kind of technical because they came from a book I read called Reasonable Faith about 2 years ago. So I think there's 4 or 5 arguments on it. So the cosmological argument is simply which everything that comes into existence has a cause within nature. The universe came to existence, therefore has a cause. However, it's not within nature. Natural laws are matter. So that's the cosmological argument. That's very simplified. The origin of moral values. If God doesn't exist, then objective moral values and duties do not exist. Objective moral values do exist, therefore God exists. These are kind of these deductive arguments, they're called, you know, that scientists sometimes put out, and theologians and philosophers as well.
Can take back, yeah.
The fine-tuned universe, right, this is which is due to either physical necessity, chance, or design. It is not due to physical necessity or chance, therefore it's design. The ontological argument, it's possible for a maximal great being to exist. So the first premise is, it is possible for a maximal great being to exist. If it is possible for a maximally great being to exist, then a maximally great being exists in some possible world. If a great maximal being exists in some possible worlds, then it exists in every possible world. If a maximally great being exists in some possible world and every possible world, then it exists in the actual world. If it exists in the actual world, then a maximum great being exists. There are condensed arguments of it, but that's actually a mathematical equation. You had to put into words to formulate it. So, like, obviously, they say on the Bible. First, on Ron Wyatt, there is a lot of clash on that. Just actually wanted to go to that. Ron, but the problem I find with that, there's clashes on everything. Right?
Yeah.
Now, I do get that, and also, say for Noah's Ark, right? It sounds a bit crazy about Noah's Ark, but archaeologists and historians do often cite the Bible to find landmarks.
Yeah.
So it goes to say that these people that they're talking about did exist. Like Pontius Pilate, right? There was no ever books written about him. There was no historical writings or log for him. It was just Matthew, Mark, John, but they're New Testament, and they obviously would be talking about people who are around them.
Correct. Yeah.
But he was what was his role? He was like chief. He gave the executioners. He was the head of the Romans.
Yeah.
But when they only like 70 years ago, when they knocked down this big site in Jerusalem, they found Pontius Pilate written on a pillar and his land.
Yeah.
Like,
this is Ron White.
No. This is like that's just a finding.
Yeah.
What I was building up the wrong way is that, say for Noah's Ark, right? This one even it sounds crazy to talk about, right? Because we know this as a story, a colouring book, you know, all this kind of thing. The Old Testament says it landed in the mountains of Ararat, right?
Yeah.
And that's where they found this site. So they went up, and it says it's 100 cubits, and which is the measurement of it, and it has a depth, and they found different joists and things like that.
Yeah.
But also NASA engineers went out to that site, you know, and there was historians and researchers, not, you know, from America who flew over, who did, you know, qualified guys who did verify it as well. Like the Turkish government even, you know, put that as Noah's Ark, and they have been built or whatever. But as well, there's I've seen a lot of criticism on Ron Wyatt. He's making false claims and this, that and the other. And then I've seen guys going back to it, like philosophers and historians, saying, no, like wood experts, they had different types of experts on things. There seems to be the problem here as well, I think, is that I say Catholicism.
Yeah.
I don't say I'm Catholic, right? Someone came in the other day and said, your Old Testament is King James, it's Protestant. I said, well, I don't really, you know, it's basically the same, you know, there's not very much in it that's different. There's nothing really, you know, and has sites at the bottom. So what I was saying there was that he was Protestant,
Mhm.
and a lot of the Catholic Church did not approve of him going around making these findings.
Yeah.
I think there was a part of that they were, you know, there was someone on the other side almost, because they were so controlling. Everyone knows what the Catholic Church was like, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same stroke, you could say, look at Bill Nye. He went through the Noah's Ark Museum and started there's a video that he went
I
through.
watched that. Yeah.
Yeah, but Bill Nye has no scientific, you know, degrees in anything.
Mhm.
You know, he had a children's program. He's actually been condoned, or not condoned. He's been renounced by the scientific community in the last few years because he made racial slurs and he made very anti-scientific statements. Now, he did raise good questions, and there was unfortunately there was guys who I think didn't.
Ken Ham.
Yeah, Ken Ham. Yeah,
he doesn't do a whole lot for the creation.
He's not like, you know, and like William Lane Craig I just quoted there. He's not he's creationist. He's not a young earther and like that.
Yeah.
And you probably have to be Peterson talks about Noah's Ark, but as in prehistory.
Yeah.
You know, as in, you know, every culture in the world has a worldwide flood story. You know, the Chinese had it, the Egyptians had it, you know, the Native Americans had it. There's hundreds of them who had it. But he said it's pre-world. Now, the problem as well with that is there's different ways to interpret the Bible. People interpret the Bible different ways, but it only says one thing. It doesn't give dates or anything like that. But I don't know, it doesn't specify that, because the point is, the Old Testament that the rise and fall of Israel, the prophet arose, and the New Testament is Christ. Yeah. He makes all things new. So a lot of people asked him about the Old Testament, which was written way before Christ, and he didn't go back on anything, but he was setting it right, you know, making it more relevant, making modern teachings.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I actually have only doing research recently, and I have two things on my mind, which I'll go into first, and then I do have actually things that are so they're like biblical contradictions. But anyway, so this is from an atheist. What I did was, for this one, now for the biblical inaccuracies or contradictions, I actually typed that into the search.
Okay.
And I found that. But for Ron White, what I did was I just typed in Ron White.
Yeah.
And it was quite startling the amount of websites that call him fake. But anyway, we'll just start with the ark. I looked at the picture and then I was okay, it does look quite boat-like. When I clicked into the link, apparently there's actually 3 shapes that easily could be a boat, which was mapped. So as well with the ark, the Turkish government had cordoned off the area. He went to get a warrant to allow him to search the site. So he called, I think it was a Dr. Martin, and there was another guy. There was actually 4 and brought up to the site. So apparently, this is now again me searching Ron White. They went to meet up at a certain time. I think it was 10 a.m. Say 10 a.m. in the morning. 2 guys arrived there, and Ron White and his other associate weren't there. So what they said was he came out half an hour later and he says, look, we just done a 10-minute pass of it. We just scanned the bottom of the boat, the whole of the boat. That's what we got. So they said, okay, so the permit then came through, warrant came through, but the Turkish government wouldn't let them on site with their scanners, their radar scanners. And then he produced a full boat shape that he had scanned, although he had told his 2 associates that he only done the hull and he only got the bottom, and he was able to produce it. So that was one thing that was found on it. Just trying to see now where there's other. So there's another one was the detectors that they used only had a 1 foot depth range, and were nothing more than the back of a treasure guider's the tool that was on a magazine. Was what it claimed, that they had no scientific value.
Who's that from?
This is from. So what actually happened was a scientist in a university that he used to verify it actually didn't know that Ron White used his name. Now he knew about the search and was contacted when these guys, this particular one, it's actually Answers in Genesis was the name of the website. There's actually 2 websites that actually are Christian websites.
Yeah, I know this one.
That refute him, Ron White. But so these guys done a scientist, and I think it was maybe 20 years later, they contacted this guy and said, look, we want to ask you a few questions about it. He said, oh yeah, I know the thing. They said, well, so you verified the pieces of wood? And he said, I have no idea. I said no wood has even come to me for scanning it.
But you did see the documentary with the guys in their labs,
With
the scientists or whatever.
I did, but there's also, let's say, talk about the blood of Christ. There is no lab or university that ever come out to say that they were the ones that tested it.
Yeah, but they have tested. So say that's found on several different sites. So
which one?
The blood of Christ. That's, say Ron White said about the Ark of the Covenant, right?
Yeah.
But it's also the Shroud of Turin found the same chromosome count, and so did that Italian in more recent time. You know, where they dropped the Eucharist, put it in the water. The tree then came back with the chromosome counting.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, so when someone goes to view and I just type in Ron White, and these are the websites I get, and I'm finding that there is no lab that admitted that they were the ones that tested the blood.
In Jerusalem, on his one, yeah.
But even what they come along to then afterwards is that archaeologists, professional archaeologists, because he was an amateur archaeologist.
Yeah,
He's a nurse anaesthetist or something. Like the story with the chariot wheel. Numerous people have accounts of his wife and his son telling them that Ron actually placed the wheel there. The wife, when she said she scuba dived down as well, said that everything looked like a chariot wheel there.
Is there? I'm not saying that Ron is true, right? Because I came across as well. But is there also a chance that people are putting them, are also putting their story out there as well? Like Answer Genesis isn't a scholarly website, but I'm not saying now that he didn't do it. I'm not saying that because I'm not an expert on Ron Wyatt. What I did find intriguing was where the boat was. They went up the hill and there was they found the ancient stone with the engravings of the people in the boat, and it was like chiseled into it. But I'm not saying, you're right. This is an important thing as well, that we question everything that we see, because the internet, like you said, we can look at certain things and find a lot of stuff on the internet. The internet is so blown out of proportion, or so vast on every subject, that when I type in Ron Wyatt, a lot of stuff comes up before I find,
Anything about fake.
No, there is, like, secular word thing, there is fake, you know what I mean? Like, and there's plenty there that's fake. Like, he could have only had the findings published once or twice, there's one other thing put whenever it was.
Yeah.
There's a lot to say he's wrong. I'm not saying that, what I see in documentaries was different guys from NASA and all verifying it, which is very hard to struggle against. But then if you say there is other scientists who say, no, that's not true.
Yeah.
This is where, you see, because when this came to light as well, you kind of say, well, if this is true without a shadow of a doubt, surely everyone should know.
Exactly,
you know what I mean? I think really with faith, that gets rid of the idea of faith. Because if everything was true, and I said this before about if God was in the sky, you'd know he was there. Like a lot of the atheists say, why doesn't God appear to everybody in plain daylight, and then we'd all know, But that the idea of you making the step, that could be part of the test of life. I don't know. That it's a story of the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
And these people were branched away from the Exodus story, and it's basically a story about pride, and they wanted to build a tower so high that basically it was a structure so high that in their mind metaphorically pierced heaven, as a way of saying we don't need God, the kind of thing, and this is where the Bible talks about where he scattered the people with different languages so they couldn't communicate and build up against them in a way. And it was a sin of pride, basically, that we don't need God, we can do this. And that's why it's called Babel, because it's the different languages. That's where the name of the tower comes from, But, Ron Wyatt, you won't find him in the Testaments or anything like that. Now, I do think some of the stuff is intriguing, and some of the guys that are on site are scholarly known, but at the same time, it is, you find both sides of it, and it's important to question both sides of it as well.
Yeah, no, it is, yeah.
And I'd say, when I was talking about is Christianity anti-science, when I kind of stand here to defend Christianity, I'm defending Christ and Christ's word. It's really New Testament stuff, And I have probably pages on it because I think he's fairly solid as a character.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to go against him. I remember, you know, someone saying recently, I think we both know who it is, you know, if he was alive now, he'd be carrying a coffee cup around, you know, it was, you know. But, the problem with that is, you know, when you dig, I was just back from Israel, you know, and I seen all like, they were middle class, you know, had their own carpentry shop.
Mm-hmm.
They were well known for that. He was 30 before he decided to go into the ministry, you know, and he was 33 when he died, so it's 3 years. But when you read his quotes in the New Testament, they're so intelligent, you know, for back then, and they're in parables. It's like they stand the test of time because they're in parables almost.
Yeah.
And the concepts, and there's no flaws in the concept of I'm knocking every man's door. He said that when he was alive. Like, obviously, he'd say all these things. You know, he's creating the what we believe the metaphysical image of him for when he's gone. He's there.
Yeah.
But you know, there's, in the Gospel of Thomas it says, it's only discovered in the 1950s.
When you say only discovered?
Uncovered. They have, like, the Bible is he would, like, they were all murdered.
Yeah.
And his writings were obviously not published before he was. But you know, he says, you know, the kingdom of God is laid out in front of men, but men do not see it. And that, you know, all these things are, you know. So I'd say, like, if I think Christianity is not anti-science, and I'll make a small case for it, and we can talk about it. So I would say that it could be anti-scientism, because there is an anti-scientism thing where it's to get rid of maybe religion. You know, there's definitely people like, who would you say, Richard Dawkins out there, who devoted his life to get rid of, you know, religion. Thinks it's a cancer on the world. What's Sam Harris? Yeah. You know, he's quite well spoken, and he go against it quite a lot. But you know, science says the universe had a beginning, and the world was created from nothing. It's based. I said about that, and about the evidence of the supernatural. And where was I jumping to? Sorry. So I was saying about the Bible also has a lot of stuff that science took from as well. You know, say the world was round, you know, was in the Bible before anyone thought about it. Or there was a lot of stuff about physical exercise on your body, how important, you know, bacteria to keep away, keep clean, and all the, you know, there's a lot of like stuff. The Book of Job has hundreds of things like that, you know,
which are not. That's not God's words about. That's just facts about the world we live in. Yeah. Not necessarily religion based, but in a religious scripture. Yeah. Yeah.
So I would make. So say if you make a case for, right, they say the Bible is the inspired word of God, the Old Testament. So what does inspire mean? Well, inspire means to breathe. It's where the name comes from, you know. So the expire means, you know, out of term, or someone expires when they die. So the inspire is to breathe life into. So the question then is, what does it mean to be inspired? If these are, well, if you think about neurology, you know, I delved into this a lot because I wanted to know if, you know, when we're here discussing these things, right? But where does our thoughts come from? Not where does our evidence or where does this, that, or the other come from? Like, the very act of a thought manifesting in your mind is very unknown to us, even in neurology. You know, why we're able to question these things, how we just react when and it manifests itself. And I have a lot of stuff on kind of the mental effort your brain takes. So, like, the brain, they reckon that the brain doesn't produce the mind. There's neuroscientist Wilder Penfield, and he applying electrode to the motor cortex. He forces patients to involuntarily raise their arms, vocalize, or recall memories. But he could not involuntarily force patients to act. He could stimulate the will. So he could not stimulate the will. He said there's no place in the cerebral cortex where electronical stimulation causes a patient to decide something. He concluded that there's a causal force missing that cannot be explained by brain chemistry alone. And he argued that the mind was not in the brain chemistry. Okay. And then, because they had visual binding problems, visual binding means that the brain's been completely mapped, and there's no place where that could be responsible for unifying perceptions. So that different parts of the brain store information about colours, objects and shapes. But there's overwhelming evidence to find there's it contains no high resolution full view representation of visual seeing, even though they are subjectively experienced. So they cannot conclude the brain gives rise to the mind, and it can't be responsible for the subjective experience it unifies. And like they map effort, like mental effort can be remapped in brain chemistry. Like they do a therapy with stroke victims that they can change the neurons in the brain that leads the mind to shape and manipulate the brain, and not the other way around. You know, and it's quite interesting that the fact that we're conscious and we think or we dream these ideas, you know, it's like we try and, you know, animals like don't do that, you know, like they don't decide like we do and have free will and the matter of them likes. So I think that the brain, the conscious mind that cannot be located it's like that's what gives us the spark of divinity, I think, you know, that what gives us meaning, you know, same about you know, inspiration and things like that as well. Why do we get inspired? You know, where does that come from? Say The Sound of Silence, you know that song.
Yeah.
It was redone by Disturbed in recent years, and people loved it. It was much more powerful, and it was the orchestra kicked it off, and it gives you like you know, when you hire it up and you blast it, you know, causes a reaction. But what is that reaction? You know, if we're just chemicals and bacteria, why do we react inspired by that? You know, or get that feeling from it? And I think that's what Christianity does in people's lives. It gives them that, which they can't locate. You know, it's that act of being inspired, or that act of you know, meaning. You know, gives it you relate to it, and you know, because if you're a materialist point of view, you know, you're just a byproduct, an accidental byproduct of nature. Yeah. But yet people hold moral value on life. You know, people.
Which can be debated for animals. Animals do have morals in terms of looking after their young, not going into their territory that's not theirs. Yeah. Mating with one mate, like you got the swans, they mate with one mate, and that's it. Yeah. Like, so there is evidence of morals outside of human consciousness, which is in animals, which can be fought against to say, well, if animals have morals, we have morals. Like, I think one of the most amazing things for humans is that we do have morals. Now, this is my opinion, because after death, I wouldn't like to say that it's complete blackout. I would hope that after death, our mind is still running like a dream, but it fades out. It fades to black. You don't really say like you can live 3 days in a dream and wake up and you've only slept 4 hours. Yeah. So I would say that it feels like you woke up another day and you moved, but eventually we're going to fade out. But I think that to hold moral value over something whilst going through that life, knowing that is your end, I find that amazing. But I wouldn't say that. See, in a lot of neurology, they say that if the mind does carry on by natural means, it'll be a lot more random. And you know, when people come out near-death experiences, just talking about this in the last podcast, people come to critical condition. 1 in 20, 20%. It's 1 in 5. Yeah. Report a near-death experience, and it's very consistent. I was quoting from a journal of a scientific journal in America, a medical journal, sorry, that surgeons were being converted because of the things they were talking about were so consistent across the world. It's become big scholarly investigation over the last 40 years that so many people have, regardless of, you know, atheism or Buddhist or whatever, they go have this tunnel experience, a view of life, sometimes a choice whether to come back or not. And the neurologists weigh in and say, if people's minds carried on, it'd be a lot more random. It'd be like static on a TV, you know, the chemicals would be fading. You wouldn't be logic to it. But you have atheists waking up as Christians and Muslims doing the same thing. You know, it's I'm not saying it's fact, it's far from fact, but it's evidence enough to look at it. You know, I think that people disregard these kind of evidential things. I think that it's showing us that there's something else there, but it can't go too far. That's my opinion on it. Yeah. That what belief does, it gives you an inkling. Here's Christ. Here's a guy who was only 3 years in ministry, over 2,000 years ago. All his followers were slaughtered.
but yet he's the biggest, most influential person in the world over 2,000 years later. And you know, the difference with him, he says he's the living God, and you know, so he's coming into people's lives. And I didn't know any of these quotes, but you know, every man must be born again. You know, these kind of things where it is consistent with these people's, you know, coming back to it.
Yeah.
It's very hard to talk to someone about it who never went through it, because it's kind of like, that's not fact.
Yeah.
And it's true, it's not fact, and people can't believe someone else's experience.
No.
But I think the evidence of why we can't locate the conscious mind, but it's there, or people come back from it, or you know, where do morals come from for an atheist?
Yeah, but that's like.
No, we base our standard of morals on God is the ultimate good, and we have the lessons that we strive to be the ultimate good.
So what would say if here's a depiction? So 100,000 years ago, there's human-like creatures, the ones that we came from, who know not to take their neighbours their food supplies because they die. It's because you know, if you take something, like animals, even though you take something away, like they can trap animals. Animals can trap their prey and leave them to starve for days before picking on them. So it becomes then, in order to keep this alive, I need to feed it. So one creature to another feeds it.
Why not always be out for yourself? You know, if I truly, like honestly, I truly believed that there was no God, which I don't think even scientists say. They say, atheism says, atheism, it comes from Latin again, where theism is belief. It's like muse is to think, and muse is not to think. That's where they get amusement parks or comes from. It's all Latin, but derived into Old English. But they, you know, I was saying there, if there was no atheists. Sorry, where was I going?
You were saying if you were an atheist, morals. Yeah,
well, morals. Yeah, if I was an atheist, I would. If I really lived by that, I would just be out for myself. You know, and I think that I don't know. My brain structure is not that. It's not that I want to do that. But I think that if I really believed in no God, why would I try, you know, and not manipulate things that won't get well from me? Like in the grand scheme of things, why would that be bad? And who's to say it is bad? And who's to say that what's bad for someone is not bad for me?
Well, let's say so. Now I'm an atheist now. There's a guy in work and he's gonna get the job before me, so I just kill him. Because then I'm get it. I'm not gonna get it. Because there's laws. There's laws in place.
But is that the only thing stopping people?
No. There's.
Do you agree that we hold a high regard for life?
Yeah. Well, I would hold a high regard for life. I wouldn't. I don't believe that there's a God. I don't believe that morals that we have came from a God or came from a Messiah or Jesus or a messenger. They were there before us. You know, I would think in my head that whoever came up with religion made it very easy and said, well, the way we live is because God gave us this way to live. And society wasn't going to turn around and go, well, if God gave us that, we're going to do the opposite and start slaughtering people and cut people's necks off.
Yeah.
So I think it goes back a lot further than we can date, and because of that, my opinion, religion found it very easy to jump on it and say, oh, we'll take that. Yeah,
that we were going to say that God is that structure.
Yeah.
Could be the case, but you know, I think that if people live out that, it will eventually get, you know, to a stage where if we're all bacteria and chemicals, you know, people in power could make the rules to suit them. It could be easy.
Which does easily happen with presidents.
Like Friedrich Nietzsche, he was a historian and philosopher. He announced the death of God, and a lot of this is in 1882. But basically, what he meant was that the fundamentals that the Western society lives on have been crumbling, and he said, and a lot of atheists take that and say God is dead, and it's a triumphant thing, you know. But what the full quote is, and we'll never have enough water to wash our hands of what we've done. He predicted the Soviet Union and the totalitarianism that followed a few years later and the deaths of millions.
Yeah.
Like Hitler was atheist, and you could see his doctrine was similar to. So was Stalin. These guys, had very little regard for human life. They wanted things their way, and they were very vocal about being atheists as well.
But
I'm not saying that was their.
Yeah, but both held very high regards in leadership.
They were both very intelligent guys
and great leaders. Now, was there? I was only speaking to someone recently about this. Was their idea right, but not in how they carried it out? Was the idea right for the perfect world, the perfect way, but not to ridicule, not to kill people, so that they created a specific? Was it just an idea in their head, and they interpreted it wrong, and they took it out? Like he went and he killed people. He wanted to create this blonde hair, blue eye race. Like you're talking about killing millions of people just to achieve that. Maybe he had an idea of a perfect world, but just didn't know how to interpret it and read it wrong. Like we can't prove that. Now he made horrible decisions, but also the people who were his followers. Let's just say, I'm not comparing Hitler to God, but these people believe. No, I'm not, but these people believe that that he was like their demigod.
Yeah, this went off. Okay. Is it? Is it recording?
No, probably not.
I can edit this just to screen it off. Yeah. Can I hit video and go again?
Yeah, just
So, do you want to make that point again?
No, because it'd be kept on something else.
I can keep the audio. Clip it.
Yeah, no, sorry, yeah, so what I'm not comparing Hitler to God, no, I'm not, but I'm stripping it down to an approach where there's a lot of followers who believe in this leader who is carrying out a certain thing that the rest of the world don't believe in.
Yeah.
So, and he did.
A lot of people say he. Yeah, a lot of people say he was the Antichrist. Incarnate. He held little regard for human life. In a lot of ways, like he was trying to make something that he thought was beautiful, but science can't access aesthetic judgments, which leads on to say, why do we make them at all? Why do you have a playlist of your favorite music, or why are certain colors more preferable to you? It's very interesting that you have these things that illuminate you in a way, but as well, like, let me see. What do you think of this quote?
Yeah.
There's that people don't want to. There's an idea, right, that atheists just don't want to live out. That they have an idea that it's true, right? That there is a God. That our feelings and what we do means that much to us. That we do live it out in a certain way. But that we don't want to conform to. If we believe in Christ, say, you have to live that out, and it means everything you do matters. Where nihilism would say nothing matters, and they could suffer for it with the end result. But the offside is that they have no responsibility, and it could be the motivation behind it.
Yeah. Well, I was only thinking about this, and we were saying so. When I started delving into on this topic, so you're saying that what would you say if God did exist, but we're afraid of admitting that
of living that out almost.
So one of the flaws I find in this is science is coming along and it's trying to predict how these things happen, and obviously then there's the science, there's normal day science in the labs being carried. There's also then science going on the back trying to predict how the world started, the world was created. What I found and what has seemed quite troubling to me is, I put this in perspective an easier way. So I tell you, I'm a dragon at home, breathes fire. I have it in the shed at the back. The dragon is immaterial. The fire is immaterial. The dragon is invisible and the fire is invisible. Is it your job to prove that I don't have a dragon, or is it my job to prove I do have a dragon?
As a standpoint from who am I in this?
I'm just telling you my story, and I'm just asking you just a question. Do I have to prove I have the dragon, or you have to prove I don't have a dragon?
Yeah, I know this. I heard this one. This is like a spin-off of the flying spaghetti monster kind of thing. You
Yeah.
know, in the sky.
Mm.
But I would say that you're living as if there is one.
Who is that?
People.
Living as if there is a.
There is. So it's hard to complicate because God is an ultimate being that you know the highest morals and the creator. So.
But funny enough, in the Bible, it quotes. God says, don't know if I have the quote here, but it's, "Let us create man in our form."
Yeah.
Who's the us and who's the our?
Well, see, this is the idea of Christ as well.
Mm-hmm.
He said he was there at the beginning. So he says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was made flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the idea of the Logos. And this is the Word being made flesh.
Mm-hmm.
So Christ was in human form. And it was the Spirit hovered over the water. So this is the idea of the Holy Spirit. And this is where the Trinity comes in.
Mm-hmm.
So it said, on the third night, the Spirit hovered over the water plane. And the Logos as well. And if you act out the Logos, which is Christ's view of the world, like the tradition of the Bible is the book. You know, this is where this is where it all came from. You know, the tradition of it is the book.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of atheist scholars, and they write out books on why atheist is wrong. Basically, not to worry about it. This is the way of enlightening yourself. But they're acting out the very Logos by doing that. Why make a book to enlighten people? That is what Christ is for.
Mm-hmm.
It's the meaning, the drive behind enlightening the world in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like the accent, like the axiomatic figure of the Western world. You know, they say it's not an accident that he was unfairly nailed to a cross and murdered.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was the idea of the worst possible thing happened to the best possible person.
Yeah.
And even up there, he said, you know, Lord, forgive them. They don't know what they do. Or Father, forgive them.
Yeah.
You know, what man can do that almost. You know, if you just take a humanistic view of it, after being scourged almost to death, and there's very historical accuracy about how badly, they reckon he was barely alive going, to even come out with something like that. Or the fact that, they had Roman guards guarding. You know, it wasn't an ordinary thief. There were two ordinary thieves put up beside him who weren't beaten. They didn't have a crown of thorns, which the Shroud of Turin shows. And, you know, that actually shows as well that whoever was in that shroud was only there for 3 days. It's only a finding in the 80s. But that, like, the fact that, you know, it's in Roman history. There's a Roman seal on that, you know, and it's in Roman history that that the evidence, it's evidential that the tomb was empty after 3 days. That the conspiracy was, you know, his disciples could steal it. That's why he put the guards there in the first place.
Yeah.
And then he appeared to each of them, and then they came out of hiding, you know, and then they were separated. But they went to spread the word. After being in hiding, they made a complete U-turn, and each of them were tortured and murdered and went to their deaths. You know, beheadings, crucifixions. Judas killed himself, but because he believed as well, you know, that he had betrayed innocent blood. He tried to give the money back, and this, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, on that as well, over 500 saw him risen. And you know, and there was such a mass crowd that it was so evidently true that I've seen debates on this where people said that it could have been mass hallucination. But it just doesn't consist with scientific evidence either, because so many people seen the exact same thing. And the Testaments of Paul was written, he wrote his first letter to the Corinthians within 7 years.
Yeah.
Now he didn't publish it until 40 years later. Not 40 years later, no, 30 years later. But that was when the first one was written, and it had the first-hand witnesses of the event. Very evidential, you know, like it spread. You know, these are going against the Roman Empire, you know, and the Roman Empire eventually converted to Christianity. You know, that's where the Roman Catholic Church comes from. You know, it was so powerful that's for one man who could have been just a crazy loon, which there were probably plenty of, to come out with such intelligent things, timeless almost, and have such an impact on the whole world, it does warrant looking into. You know.
But even, so let's I'm going to quickly go through these. So, so these are the things I spoke earlier on about. Say Bible contradictions as such. I just want to see. Obviously, I haven't read the Bible. So this is again huge example of what you can find when you do search. So I'll just go through. So say Sabbath day. Yeah. Exodus
Sunday.
28. Yeah. Sabbath day. So it says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy.
Sunday. Yeah.
The Romans wrote, one man esteemeth one day above another esteemeth every day alike. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind.
Who said the Romans?
Romans 14.
Oh, Romans. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. So it said the permanence of the earth.
So on that point, what is it saying that?
So one is saying keep your day holy. The other are saying one person will hold one day above the other. Let everyone make up their own mind. So it's not actually saying keep your Sunday holy. Yeah,
but okay.
So so these are just quick ones. So say the permanence of the earth. Now we can't actually ecclesiast. Would you know how to pronounce that?
Oh, the book. I haven't actually done too much in
anyway.
Ecclesiastics. I think it is
1:4. The earth abideth forever. But Peter said, the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up.
Yeah, it's alluding to if we do not follow the Christian.
Well, there's a full stop after that.
Okay.
So let's just
okay. We'll take them first.
Yeah. So seeing God, Genesis 33:30. I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. John 1:18. No man hath seen God at any time. So there's, let's say, it gets quite. Let's say everlasting covenant. God created an everlasting covenant with Abraham. But then God creates a new set of rules with Moses. So he said, and then Jesus, do not think I've come to abolish the law of the prophets. I've not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of pen, will by any means disappear from law until everything is accomplished. So that's Matthew. And then Hebrews say, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel and with the people of Judah. So it's kind of saying, Matthew's saying that he said, I'm not changing anything.
Yeah.
But Hebrews are saying...
Are some alluding to the second coming out of rapture as well? You know, could be interpreted that way, where the new covenant is that, Christ came to fulfill... I remember reading on the prophecies that Christ fulfilled. There was a big, even when they were trying, the Romans tried not to, really it was the Jews who killed him. The Romans killed him, but the Jews put him up for death, which is his own people in a way. But he was fulfilling prophecies, and that's what made him. That's why I saying he was no ordinary thief. He was battered and beaten, and they put the Roman seal there to make sure, because the prophecy was he would rise 3 days after, and the Romans knew that. And they wanted this religion quashed because he was gathering followers, and it could have started an uprising, an overthrow of their power. But also it was taking out Judaism because they didn't believe he was the son of man, the prophet they were waiting for. So that's why there was such emphasis, and even the fact that he was buried in a rich man's tomb. The Roman Josephus did that, but the Romans gave the go ahead accidentally. It was just it was very and Josephus nearly killed but it wasn't his fault, because the Romans were meant to preserve from the prophecies, and they, more specifically on the third day, there was more. The guards were there and all. There was mounting. Christ did say to come, but he did highlight a couple of the of Moses' laws. And I think that's the spread of. I think the spread of atheism. I think. I don't get too much of people being like Richard Dawkins and that going out and devoting their whole life to put down the idea of Christianity.
No.
Because I think it's a good moral ethic way to live by. It teaches. He was the first man who said in the Sermon on the Mount, we've all heard you should love your neighbour as yourself, but I say love your enemy, because if you love only those who love you, what reward is there in that? You know, it was an idea, love everyone, turn the other cheek, you know, to elevate, make people as you can, help people through your struggle. I find that's why I spread it in the podcast, because you know, my motivation is to help people with their physical health, you know, and their mental health, and one I think helps the other. But also I think that, you know, I found that when I found that spiritual side, it made my whole, like, I wasn't materialistic anymore, and I valued much more stuff, and I went for walks and breathed in nature and appreciated life a lot more. Appreciated, you know, we're very complex creatures, and we don't know exactly much about the world, you know, the cosmos, what we're on. We're on a big ball of rock that twirls at 67,000 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the beauty of it, because it's amazing looking, you know. And Christianity helps me with that, you know, and the fact that maybe Christ came into my life in a metaphysical but manifestation helped that a lot, and that happens a lot, and that's why my motivation is to say as well, if you have the spiritual side as well, and here are reasons for it, I think that's a good cause to push. Not that I'm pushing it, but I'm saying that if people look at it again, they might find that maybe there is evidence there, maybe it's a bit sketchy, but they may find that he is one of the most historically, you know, written about men in history. You know, his life is. You ever hear your man? He was a Las Vegas police detective and an atheist, and he went to debunk Christianity by looking at the Gospels as any forensic texts, and he studied for years, and he concluded that these were the actual words of Christ, and that if it was an evidential case, the resurrection must be true in a way. Now again, it's whatever, but you know, you hear that story, the case of Christ, Lee Strobel, different guy, the journalist, you know, trying to do the same thing, goes and compiles all the evidence, and then all of a sudden realises or whatever, you know. But I think that it's a good way to live by. That New Testament book is so full of lessons that are unbelievable. You know, sometimes you're reading, you're like, who could have said them things? This guy was, if he was a normal man, he was a super intelligent guy, and who also wasn't super intelligent when there was not very much education back then. But the way he phrased things and the impact he's had on the world is like no other, you know.
But again, taken from say my point of view, a lot of things he said are quite vague, and then as you said earlier on, like metaphorical, like parables, yeah. Which to you, like to me, listening to it is exactly what he's saying, but to maybe a Christian listening to it, they take from the meaning. And part of it then of the reason when I was talking about the dragon idea was, what I find is religion kind of stands over science's shoulders. This is my view of it, and it says, you know, oh, what are you searching? What are you doing? And science is kind of, you know, trying to do this, not find an answer. And religion kind of, yeah, God. That's how I find it is. It's when science doesn't have an answer, religion kind of goes, that's God. But I think that gap, maybe not in all ways, I think that gap in some ways is closing, and it is why maybe we're seeing a drop off of religion in primary schools.
There's a pull, people are pulling God out of schools, you know, and out of there. And you see that with the abortion thing recently, you know, and that as well I think is a lack of, you know, that's taking things out of God's hands as well in a way.
So you would have voted for abortion?
I voted for no abortion.
Yeah, which is the same I would vote for.
Yeah.
But I have no spiritual or religious belief on it. I just believe. But
I believe that we hold life at a certain value.
So would you think then that you would hold life at a higher value than I would hold life?
Well, I would think that. See, I try and come at it also scientifically, because Christianity isn't against science.
No.
Like science is great. Like I'm a big science advocate.
But science isn't against Christianity or against religion either.
No.
Aspects of religion is against science as well.
Yeah,
Like there is as much as the two of them lean on each other, the two of them also have a matched debate as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I would, I'd often say, yeah. So look, the way I would say it is that, we see him designed, and not only do we see him so specifically designed, we live out, a high value for life, and we have conscious decisions, and we can formulate thoughts, even though we can't nail that down even at this day and age.
Well,
Yet, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe
could
yet.
be,
Like we have technology where
Yeah,
people
yeah.
blink and the lights come on, but we can't figure out the one thing that how we all communicate is, like, I'm talking now, but I've heard neuroscience saying we don't know exactly how your split seconds, decision making speech is
Yeah.
coming from. But that's massive. That's something we all take for granted. So same with DNA. How specifically, it's the most sophisticated storage system in the whole world, and it always has been. And
But it is, but also coming from my side of the table, easy to say that it came from God when we have no.
yeah.
It's easy to say there's a hole
But
there.
it won't fit with a designer because it seems so explicitly designed. Like the chances of, right, that we're the only planet in our universe, say, that has life that we can observe, like organisms that we can observe so far. But it's not just organisms. It's organisms that are so intelligent, and have this idea of a higher power, and they work in sync, and the universe works in sync. Like they say, insects can't live without plant life. A plant life can't live without insects pollinating them. So which came first? And the chicken and egg problem always arises there,
Yeah.
And are these two things come together? But that's not what evolution teaches us. What's the other side? Now, I'm not saying it's evidence for God, but it's not a proof statement that God exists.
No. Well, yeah. What it does is
The lack of intermediary stages as well is big.
Yeah.
Not just with humans. Like, why is there not one skeleton, of an ancient generation step that came like from the chimpanzee crossover? Not just with people, but with animals.
Do you also know that there is inside dolphins and whales, there is internal limbs of their lower back, which they don't use because
they say there used to be legs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen.
But there are also two creatures that have to surface for air as well.
Yeah, and I've also seen a lot about because they're mammals, but apparently them bones as well. The argument to it is that that's what they use to like whales are so massive, or dolphins are big that to mate, them bones actually latch to or support them on. There's been findings on that as well, because they say that never would them bones be big enough to carry a whale on land.
Yeah.
Right at the back of their body. But at the same time, it's contested between the two, so they throw that at each other.
Yeah.
Now it definitely is for mating. Whether it's used for legs, we've never found a whale with legs, a skeleton of it. So that is conspiracy. Where in that side of things, it's not evidence for God because it still could have evolved to have them for mating. But I would say evolution, right, is, if you think of what is evolution, it's like a process that has intelligence behind it, that is governing our life.
But what's the intelligence behind it? Like,
well, it's an intelligence system because it's
survival of the fittest, natural selection, survival of the fittest.
But how the eyes develop on different animals and how they breed, they obviously start from sludge in the water. It gain legs, and then it gain camouflage to hide from its prey, and
which is not obvious. You said obviously,
but like it did gain to blend in with its environment and to survive.
But so again, it's so science never said this is exactly what happened, but it predicts it through research and saying, well, this and this, we predict that this is how this works.
And I would say there's more lack of evidence for that, because
then what? Then lack of evidence for God.
For a creator, for a designer. The reason I say it is because everything seems so designed, and we can see that. That's apparent. That's a truth. But we can't see any intermediary stages of any species. And surely at this stage, if the world is billions of years old, we would even know how the process is. And I think that evolution is another way of saying God. It's an intelligent frame of process that is molding, intelligent life. And it seems to be specifically governed to do a certain thing, but it is a process that seems to have some intelligence behind it.
But did he say this with the watchmaker thing? So see, you find a watch on the ground had to be made by an intelligent designer, had to be made by a designer. We only know that it's made by a designer because our life experience tells us that it's a designer. But who says that the grass that the watch was found on isn't more complex than the watch is? Why do we determine that this material item is more complex design than the natural flora or ground around us? So we just assume that it's an intelligent designer because it's a watch, and we know watches are made by intelligent designers. But we've no proof of material forming together, so we can't rule that out.
Mm-hmm.
I know that this watch came from a factory.
Yeah.
I know that. But I found one on the ground. I can assume it came from a factory. But I have no proof that unless there's camera footage of it being dropped, I can still assume that it was formed somehow, but I have no proof for it.
The line that I said a while ago, that the kingdom of God is around all of us, but men do not see it, where I see the evidence is, the trees producing oxygen for us, or, how the rain, comes from the sea, goes into clouds, goes down the land, greens the soil for us, it rolls back and it does the process over. There's all these specific processes that are in place that are so seemingly designed, but they do a purpose, and it's not just a simple process either. It's interesting, like how all these things are so, like I said, about the plants and the bees, and one can't live without the other, and this is a reason for them. It seems to go hand in hand almost, and that's why I would say, that when I look around, I think I see it. Like, I think I see it when, I said it, I probably said this a few times, but when I looked at Chiron and my love for him, it's not just what would you call it, an evolutionary kind of, instinct. It's, I love and I want to nurture him, and he means that much to me.
Yeah.
It's not a chemical thing going off in my brain. It's not, if I was evolutionary, I'd know he's just bacteria and a mix of chemicals that formed by chance.
Yeah,
which is very random,
But it only had to happen once. It only had to happen once for it then to evolve. Like, we're talking about, say, let's talk about
but I'd say what happened once, like what came.
But an organism only had to mutate once.
Yeah, but
to
what
form something.
Yeah,
but
and I jump back to the matter thing, where did it come from? But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah,
but it's not just once though, because it had to evolve then and grow into such a complicated creature that we are now.
But can you see then? So science can't prove it yet, but it doesn't say, "Oh, we definitely did evolve." It says, "But predictions are that it evolved." But religion knows that God created it, but without the evidence, like the dragon head. There's no evidence. Religion forces science to disprove God, but it should be the other way around. Religion should be proving their God. True. Like science does these falsifiable tests on everyday things to prove how different things react to each other.
Yeah, and I would say there's two things with that. Is that one is that it goes back to what I said earlier, that I don't think we will ever be able to prove it. I think that's purposeful.
Yeah.
Because I think you all have to own your own experience. I think that's where Christ comes in. He's that stepping stone between us and the divine, and that's his whole purpose. And it's so well thought of, and everything he said went by it. And then the second thing was that, like, what was the second thing he said? How did I lose that there?
I didn't really have 2 points.
Did you only have one? I had two to pull out of it there. But anyway, that was one.
Yeah.
What was the last sentence you said though? It was.
Well, what I was just saying was, there's no.
Oh, science proving God is that?
No, the way around. God asking science to disprove.
I would say that science will never disprove God, and I can't see how it ever would.
But it never claims to. for the simple reason because it can't test it. It can't.
Yeah,
test
but if they
that.
came up with a rational idea of how the world was created or matter was created, you know, because the problem is things don't just come into existence out of nowhere, and like we know that nothing's going to pop into this room right now. It doesn't happen. We never see it. Matter doesn't create itself. We know that. So if natural material items don't appear, then maybe it's a supernatural or an extra natural.
But would you be
origin.
of the opinion that we're 99.999% sure nothing's going to pop into this room right now? We can't 100% prove.
Yeah, but we just
Or-
can't
or-
observe it, which is science.
No, not even that. But like, we can't. Me and you don't know for 100% fact that another lamp is going to come in between us here now.
Yeah.
Now, our evidence of and our life experience and knowing what people would say that the lamp is not going to come in there.
Yeah.
We just don't think of it.
Yeah,
But we can't disprove
that it won't.
that it won't.
Yeah, true,
Because
and
we
that's
can't
why
test it.
we can never disprove God.
Yeah.
But say if they did come up with say, now we know how it happened, it would point to a lot of things at religion, saying we have an origin of life by natural causes. This could debunk God, the God theory, the designer theory.
Yeah.
So it could knock it out, but God will never do that to science.
No.
But all I can say is that, you know, you could be up there, scratch his head saying, look at everything around you, like, you're never going to come up with this, you know, and you could be right if that is the case, because everything is so in sync.
Yeah.
Like the oxygen we breathe in, it's just perfectly tuned, you know, we went through all that.
Yeah.
But I would say as well that it has to leave, I would say you can't come at it with a prejudice against either side.
No.
And I had to go from the fence riding, evolutionary side, to delving into it. And it compiled for me because it made sense with what I had just gone through, and it continues to make sense. But it's still a knowledge source. Like I haven't finished the New Testament. I haven't started the Old Testament. I have I've seen parables from it and different verses from it, and yeah, it makes sense. And I know there's a lot of controversy in the Old Testament, and there's different people who interpreted. There's guys who are theologians, and they have debates, and you know they clash on it. I think it's good that they clash on it. It gives people ideas and all.
Yeah.
I would say I don't know why people would spread the atheist doctrine as a life view, because I don't think, to tear down Christianity, I think, you know, in the least God way of things, it was a man who preached a very good doctrine of how we should live with each other that only benefits us without the metaphysics of it.
Yeah.
But that's just the idea of Christ. And then I believe he led me into the divine, because no one comes to the Father through me, and that's what happened before I realised that.
Yeah.
Phase change things happen then. But yeah, you can't come to, you know, you have to be willing to say, to look at both sides. And it's like you went back to the Googling. If you want to find something that backs up your faith, you'll find it because you're looking for it.
Yeah.
But you also might find 10 things that goes against it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where we have to be intelligent what we're looking at.
Yeah. I think a big thing as well is the word atheist. When we're growing up and you're called an atheist, you almost take offence. And I remember when even looking at the ad that you put up for this podcast, and it was Christianity versus atheism.
Yeah.
And almost for a split second, I was, oh, and I kind of stopped, and you start to think, yeah, it is true. It's not something that I wouldn't go around and someone asks me, are you religious? I wouldn't say I'm atheist, and I'd never say. And this is why on our first podcast you said atheist, agnostic, and I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is I wouldn't say I sit on the fence.
Yeah.
I'm not full evolution. I wouldn't. It's not all there. But I find more.
It's more consistent.
Yeah, with the way I live, as opposed to put my belief in God.
Yeah.
But I think,
because the likes of Richard Dawkins and them, they would claim atheists.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but no, all I was going to say was I think hand you a New Testament and hand me the New Testament. I don't think if I were to choose New Testament, I would sway. I don't think it would turn me.
Yeah, but it might give you more respect for the figure, not in a metaphysical way.
No.
But it might say this guy is a super intelligent guy somehow among these people, you know. But you know, I would say people, like, it's true. Yeah, I said before, I I don't believe there are atheists, and clearly there is. Right, that is a bold statement to say. Like the likes of Richard Dawkins and these guys, they are.
Yeah.
Scientists would say that not as many people are atheists as they think, because even science is not ruling out that if we come to the realization, if we exhausted all other options, which they might do, they might just keep putting options up for naturalistic view.
Some people will, yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of scientists have converted when they said they're agnostic going into it, which means they believe in the natural world and they believe some things like evolution. It's different for different people.
Yeah.
But they think that there could be something that governs.
A God.
There could be an intelligent, designer.
Yeah.
And it seems that way. Not necessarily seems that way. So that'd be more on the fence. But there could be. It is possible because it looks that way.
Yeah.
And that's
I often say to you as well. If you had evidence to me now and turned around and showed me that God exists, I would love to see it, and I would love to go, okay, I was wrong. I just don't think there's anything out there for me to get satisfaction out of to swap. I don't actually have a belief.
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I don't know where I'm going. Oh no, the world was definitely created by matter and that, but I don't believe that we were formed by a God who created the perfect Garden of Eden. But when the first, say, Adam and Eve tried to find their knowledge, they were cast into a world that God had already pre-created, and also these are things that I'm just looking at from Aidan's point of view. Again, I know, but they're talking about, so for sinners, hell. So we go to an infinite burning hell for a finite amount of sins, and is it fair for a merciful God to send us to like someone could end up going to, you could be a sinner, you could end up going to hell for simply just the ignorance of God. You may not do anything else wrong, but apart from your ignorance towards God, which could say be me. If it does turn out that there is a heaven and hell, do I go to hell just for ignoring God? And if I do, I'm burning in hell for eternity for one sin.
Yeah, well, I would say that this is left open because some people asked me when I first came to religion, and I think that there's an anger there as well. And someone said to me, do you believe I go to hell? And I said, well, Jesus said,
I think this was me.
No, but I think we did have an argument as well. And probably a bit heated as well.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, and but it's funny because a few people came to me with a heated argument, Dad as well, and like Peter Crow, a few people like right on the turning point.
Yeah.
A few people attacked me, and I hadn't read any of this stuff, and there's a lot more like books of it, and I hadn't any way I could argue the toss. All I knew was that something happened, and it was changing how I saw things, and regardless if I wanted to or not, but it was an eye-opening experience.
Yeah.
But I wasn't necessarily being forced through it, but I knew that people were coming at me, and I had to know. That's what kind of said to me, you need to know what you actually believe in on all aspects, and that's why I started delving into it. And still, it's a struggle. But the likes of you saying maybe, first of all, with the judge, like this is why I think there's a judge there. My answer to that at the time was, Christ said that if you deny me in your life, I will deny you to my Father, and I stand between all men, between him and the judge. So he's not the judge, but he is who vouches for you in a way. That's the idea, because he is the stepping stone. So your relationship with him or your belief in him, he's saying, is what goes. That's why I always think people go around saying, there is no God, or claiming pure atheism. I think that better off not claiming anything, because what if you're wrong? Like if I'm wrong, I have the same result as you. But if you're wrong, it could be catastrophic. You could regret it for eternity in metaphysics. But so I would never say, no, you're going to hell. You say you don't believe in God. There's a judge there for a reason, because it's obviously not like they're not saying it's a simple decision. If you're a good person, I think that's where your judgment is. If you're an atheist and you're really an atheist and you do bad things, I think maybe the judgment will be more quicker if there is ever, if you're even a judgment. But I think if you're a good person who values life and, you know,
but an atheist. If you had someone who,
I don't know, if you're an atheist, I don't know, because if you're claiming there's definitely no God and I don't even entertain the idea, then maybe that's, I don't know. I'm not a judge.
No, I'm just picking at, say, so he says if you deny me, I'll deny you my Father.
Yeah. But that's why he also says, well, not the same thing, but I knock on every man's door. And I would say that, you know, you say to me, can you show me proof? If you turn around and give me proof, then maybe you could think about it at least.
Yeah.
And I've said a few times on the podcast, you know, that if people ask, I very rarely heard of anyone not coming up with an answer back. So if you don't have a presupposition about religion, and people do because of what the Catholic Church have done and about the mumble in the church and not liking being there, and it's gone. But if someone sat at the edge of the bed and said, look, I'm willing to entertain the idea, it might seem stupid to do it or silly to do it, but I haven't yet heard of someone who's come back a few weeks later and said nothing happened, you know. And I'm not saying that's like, but that's where your own, like, at least you asked, and that's all Christ says, you know, if you open the door, I'll walk through and I'll come and dine with him. But it's worth asking, you know, like, because we live 50 or 60, 70 years, it might take a minute and a half of your life, but it is the fundamental, you know, message of the West, you know, is Christianity and the Christ. And it's worth entertaining. If people are looking for evidence, really, and that's why I say you need to look at both sides, scientific and religious. I'd say religious. I don't think religious is like, it sounds like an organised religion. It's more faith, I think, but that's asking on the other side, you know. And if people do that, I think, fair enough, they came back and said, like, if you come back 2 weeks later and tell them something else, and you say, by the way, I asked that and it didn't work out. That's all you can do, you know, that kind of way, you know.
Because I do think, like, maybe years ago, 16, 17, there was things going on in my life, and granted they weren't death or life situations, but I do think that I know for a fact there was times where I was kind of saying, you know, I kind of said, please God this, please God that, and I got to a stage where if there's a God, I need this to happen, and they just didn't happen. I think though, my opinion of you saying, sitting at the end of the bed and saying, right, I'm willing to go, that's almost a step through the door. And I think then that if something good happened within that 2 weeks of me coming back to you, that I would objectively look at it and go, oh, that's because I've done that, or that thing might have happened, or it might have already been.
It's true. You have to be intelligent about these things. In my case, something stepped through the door before I moved at that moment. So mine might be much more dramatic than other people's. Although I've heard, you know, people, like, you know, all you have to do is Google testimonies on YouTube, you see millions and millions, and it happens in different ways because it happens differently to everybody, and it govern around their life. And I believe timing is key. And when I look back at things and how people come to me and different people I introduced to my life at different times, the timing fits so well, and different jobs and everything coming together, it just, you know, fits. Even this podcast, or, you know, people messaging me, and my friends, and but I think that, you know, it's saying that, you know, okay, you know, if you're here, I need you to show me, or else I'm going to keep going that way, you know, that kind of way. But then at the same time, you have to be scientific about it, which means if then something falls off the counter, well, let's investigate what happened there. You know, was a window, you know what I mean? Like, that's not enough. You know, something falling, like,
no, but it could have been. It depends if it was. Yeah, you do have to be scientific, because if that's on a sticky pad hook, well, the thing could have been.
But that's what I mean. There can be no room for coincidences if you want your answer. So you need to say that. But say it. You know what I mean? Like, because Christ was the one who said, you don't need to dress up and go to mass to be, you know, all you need is a relationship. And that's why I think he said, I stand between But if people, like some people, like the idea that if he was walking around with a coffee cup, just a hippie, is ignorant to who he was as an impactful, intelligent, middle class person. Because it's, that's putting your fingers in your ear because you're not even trying to figure out who he was as a person.
Yeah.
But if you sat down and thought, who is he as a metaphysical being, the answer, did he resurrect from the dead? That's what Christianity hinges on. If he didn't, then there's no Christianity.
Yeah.
But his spirit lives on, and spirit can be interpreted final vibration in the ear. There's a lot of different planes that spirit is interpreted on, but it has, cultivated our whole Western culture.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. You're coming out and saying, I want scientific proofs, or I build my life on scientific evidences, and I'm saying that's true, yeah, and I add the metaphysical side of it, but I'm saying probably I got there from a metaphysical experience, and probably that's the difference, that you never had that.
No.
Not that you're lacking anything, it's just your life hasn't gone that way. That hasn't been relevant. It hasn't come up in your set of events.
Yeah.
Kind of, isn't that fair to say?
Yeah.
Or what way would you sum up similar to?
Yeah, I haven't things that I accomplish or things that work out for me are
What you put work into it?
are down to I would think force of science or whatever you want to say it. A lot of people say the law of attraction. I don't believe in the law. I believe in the law of attraction in the sense of if I go into work and I'm a happy guy and I'm getting my work done and I'm positive and I'm helping everyone around me, that of course the manager's going to look at me and think this guy needs a promotion. But I don't think the law of attraction works in cases where I really needed the money and I found money in the ground, or I really want to do this, and next of all an opportunity, someone comes around the corner and says, oh, you know what, you should do this. Far-fetched for me.
Yeah.
So maybe to you, I have my fingers in my ear, not listening to the knock on the door. To me, there isn't.
No, well, I'd say,
door.
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I wouldn't say you have fingers in your ear. I'd say, see if
the knock came,
yeah,
I would.
So I think
I'd definitely stick my eye out to people. Whether or not I open it now is a different story. I have to investigate it.
Yeah.
But to me, I'm not sitting with my fingers in my ears, but there is no knock.
Yeah. Well, maybe it takes a turn towards it, the door, or that which is asking. Because, the thing is, 5 years ago, there's a 5 year distance between us, I'd be sitting where you are sitting now, saying, science is the only thing that's made sense of my life.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I've evolved from your way of thinking, or anything like that, but the things that have happened since then, in my circumstances, have changed it. But if I was 25, I'd be sitting here, we would have the exact same we'd be seeing eye to eye on it. Yeah. And I think we do see eye to eye on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And on science, because science predicts things, and
everyday science, does.
I believe, we're both saying that, that there is an argument for a design, and there is gaps in both sides, and I think that the gap will always be there with religion. I think that's a fundamental part of it, because if it's proof, then everyone would have to live it out, and it has to be a choice. But science can't prove that, so we're stuck where some people have experiences, some people don't, and now we're kind of like, look, I can't believe your experience because I didn't go through that. So it's kind of like, well, we'll have to hold up the science then until something else, or maybe nothing else will happen.
No, I wouldn't say. I'd say it'll be far past our time before they're even scratching the surface of discovering anything that would point in either direction. And it's funny because they have so many technologies now, groundbreaking stuff. We talked the last time we spoke. You talked about the airplanes, and we're talking about the wheelchairs. And did you see the Facebook, the big Mark Zuckerberg presentation a few weeks ago? I was in Israel, so 2 weeks ago, where he was talking about VR. We know VR is all there. He's going to make Facebook VR. But he also went on to say, that's amazing. We have VR a few years now. We know what it's like. It is pretty amazing stuff. You're basically in a different world. Like, you play that game, Resident Evil, you can't. It could be broad daylight outside. You can't escape from Like,
your mind, yeah. But you can't escape from that where you are.
Yeah.
You know, even if you're playing the gun game, even you get lost in it. Say you're midway through a match, you're there. Everything's 3D, and you believe it. But he's saying that they're with this new technology company who are talking about the next step of AI, and they have VR glasses, and this different company.
AR glass, I think, augmented.
Yeah, he has the AR glasses, but there's also these other glasses that this is just normal mainstream glasses that are going to be released. That if people, you adjust them to what your eyesight's like.
Okay.
You know, so short sighted, short.
Yeah.
But if you blink twice, it zooms in on things these kind of things. Well, your man Mark Zuckerberg says this is this wrist, and it's like a box on the wrist. Now it looks big now, but I can imagine it's tapping into your neurons, your nervous system, and it's controlling electrical components all around you. So he's like, it's just a wrist. There's no wires, nothing like that. But it's turning your computer on, it's turning your TV on, it's turning up and down, or it's turning on the kettle by your willingness almost to do it, by your nervous system reacting. He said, now this is very, very early stages stuff, but he said that it is tapping into your nervous system.
What determines the difference between turning the kettle on and the TV on? The same want, the same will, just a different.
I don't know exactly how it works. Like you know, because we've seen this. Do you see the TED talk? Well, like we were talking about the wheelchair thing.
Yeah.
What they did was they had the thing on the screen, on the computer screen, and your man was making the boxes move in and out by just his mind power doing it. Yeah, it was, yeah. And they because they're tapping into it, but it's like that idea, but it's the next step of it. So this, like, in some ways, science can answer the basic of questions, why we're here, but telekinesis isn't really possible at this stage, you know. Did you see?
But that is the thing. Like again, same thing. 99.999% sure I'm not going to move that cup in my mind. And just because I can't do it now doesn't mean I won't ever be able to do it. But my life experience, I've never moved anything in my mind before.
Yeah, everything is possible, and that's the problem.
Yeah, there's always that point, 0 point.
You've heard of people who've. You hear about these mothers lifting cars to get their babies out.
Power of mind, I would assume it's
the same thing. We were talking about this earlier on. I was back lifting weights now ever since my injury. And I'm afraid to do. No, I'm not afraid to do it.
Your body's afraid.
But it's like my body is. There's like systems inside your body. Like if I hold my arm like that, like really, what am I thinking of? It seems so natural, but that's being held up by a series of what? Like a wheel is one thing.
Muscles.
Electrons, maybe, you know. But if I just forget about it, it just drops. But just to do that, even when you think about it, it's pretty, you know, it's instantaneous. It's like, you know, it works in sync. But yeah, my body wouldn't let me, and even though my mind wanted to. So it's like they can clash. It's like the body has its own mind in certain ways, and it protects you. I've seen, you know, we're talking about I've seen straight after that Mark Zuckerberg thing. You see, you must have seen this all over Facebook. People have their feet out on the couch and they download this Nike app and they look at what shoes they want and it appears on their feet. But it's proper. It looks like they're wearing them shoes.
Like this is something in college I was doing an idea of technology in the retail industry. And my idea was you're at home and you connect to a smart mirror. And you stand in front of the smart mirror and you flick and it scans your body, scans your dimensions, and you flick a woman a dress and the dress is on them. You flick, or a man, you flick a shirt and the shirt's on. And you know how easy, like I hate going into a shop and taking off my clothes.
You never try it on.
No.
And especially.
That's what I mean. So imagine sitting at home.
Like large or XL. So some shops are XL, some shops are large. I don't know. And then I'm willing to make the journey back, but you never do make the journey back.
No, which with this technology, it'd be very hard to actually get a full read. But if I'm sitting at home and I do this and I go, geez, that shirt's only €20 down from 50. Let's try it on. Boom, on the map. Order, buy. You just go into the shop, take it off the one behind the counter. How much money?
Because they're coming to it now. That's what they advertised with the Xbox Connect initially.
Yeah.
And I never got to it. But now they seem to have it like fairly to a T.
Yeah.
You know, you can see people's jeans and all while they're wearing it. You know, they're wearing it with their outfit then, and they look proper. Like even the tracking of their feet, you know, when they're walking around.
Yeah. If you can do it with CGI, you can do it for 3D morphing. Why can't you do it for?
Yeah, absolutely.
Closer reality?
You can see how realistic games are. That's the CGI they have, you know.
Yeah.
But on that as well, right? Like I was thinking, you know, it seems like technology is filling a gap. I'm going to put this to you. You think what you think of our inadequacies.
Okay.
Right. So, it's saying that now. So what I'm saying by that is the glasses. You know, the bad side, and we're zooming in. We're making it super side now. You know what I mean?
We're defects.
Most aren't defects because they're making 3D prints and they're making hips, prosthetics,
organs. They're 3D printing organs.
Yeah, organs. Yeah, it's crazy. You know what they're doing, but that's the technology.
Yeah.
And they're curing diseases.
Yeah.
You can see that. Do you think we'll get to a stage where
they'll take over?
No, where nearly everyone, like I'm not saying the next few years.
No.
But people will die of old age or accidents only. Do you know what I'm saying about that?
Yeah,
that
no diseases, no illnesses.
Yeah, it's not going to be failing arteries. It's not. You know what I mean? It's a possibility.
I mean, well, I was listening to Elon Musk and Joe Rogan, and they discussed, and he's very
super intelligent guy, though, isn't he?
Yeah, he's very. I wouldn't say scared, but aware of AI, and he says it in a way that he says we're going to get to a stage where we're going to be connected to an AI system that will be a better version of us. And when we pass, we can be put into a new body and we can live again. And so our heart fails. Okay, Jesus, my heart's failing. We actually have an AI heart here, a prosthetic heart connected machine, put it in, and there we go. Now, this is obviously, I don't know what his religious belief is. I don't really get into much to it, but he thinks that if we don't put a restriction on AI, that we're going to try and adapt ourselves with AI.
Yeah.
AI is going to win.
That is coming, and this is the risk thing. It could be. In one way, I'm excited about these things. Another way, I'm like, what makes us human? How far can we go? They're trying to figure out brain transplants, and stuff like that. But at a stage, if you get so many transplants, when is it not you?
Yeah,
like you know what I mean? Like brain transplant, or your heart transplant. Like that's where we're like if you hurt in your heart, when something happens, and you think from your mind or your it's very peculiar. When does it not become you anymore? When is it just a vehicle?
Yeah.
But I think as well. But it is possible then that people will live to 100. Say, there's people that do live to 100. But that'll be like they will get to a stage where we could be living in what would be known as the disease era.
Yeah.
In the big scale history.
Maybe.
And people are like, there was, name a big thing.
Maybe we're the testers.
If there was Ebola, and that, or their cancer was rife, and we figured it out in 2051. Like
AIDS.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we could be in that bracket where it's not. It's completely believable that will be the case. Could be 400 years time. It could be a lot less. You say technology improves so much, and you have people's minds, and we can do.
It's the AI that what was scary about it was, and Musk made reference to it. The AI that they allowed to build up knowledge, it drowned itself. It went through Twitter and it ended up drowning itself. That's kind of scary.
Did it?
Yeah. There was not the same AI that became. This one was just an online AI that became a Hitler-loving homophobic. This was like a robot they invented, had it in a thing, and they let its AI learn. And it tried. I don't know whether. Yeah, well, that's the robot, but it tried to drown itself. And that's kind of scary about what is out there. Yeah. And if AI does pick up on something like that,
if it's thinking about making these decisions, that's scary because
exactly.
As well. I seen this AI thing where it just it made some program where an AI was running, and